Hello and welcome. Today let's make some banana bread. We're going to look at what kind of textures you can get with it and what kind of taste you can get with it, and that's going to depend on a few things, and as we go through those things, I'll explain that as we go. So let's get to the ingredients, and then after that we will get to making this banana bread. And for our ingredients, we have 1 cup of sugar, 2 cups of flour, a half a cup of oil, 1 teaspoon baking powder, 1 teaspoon baking soda, a teaspoon of salt, 2 medium eggs, a teaspoon of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract or vanillin, and 3 ripe bananas. Alright, now, for the bowl that we want to be the bowl that we mix everything in at the final part, we want to use that bowl here, and we want to mix our sugar and our eggs together, and we're going to add air into it. Were we using a solid like butter, which I would normally use, you would call that creaming the sugar. You're not really creaming sugar at this point. You're just kind of whipping air into it. And what we want to do is start it from this bright yellow that you see here. And we want that to fade down to a much, much, much less bright yellow. And the lighter it gets, the more air you've added in. And that air is important in this because it's going to help us get a softer texture. I like mine a little less dense. I'm not really a pound cake kind of person. So if you do want that, then skip this step. You do not want to do this if you want more dense banana bread. So let's jump past me using not the right tool for this. And we'll take a look at what color it is at that point. I should have used a whisk. I would definitely recommend you use a whisk. Or a hand mixer. That would have worked really well too. Now, one more quick thing before we get to the next part. The reason that we want this to be in the final bowl that we're going to mix everything is, if you pour the liquid that we've whipped the air into and then force it into the dense banana bread dough, basically, it's going to lose pretty much all the air. Whereas with the banana bread, doing this in the last bowl, we can actually fold that in slowly and still keep most of the air we whipped into this. So let's get over to the next part. Alright, once we get it down to a much lighter yellow, as you see here, that's when we're good. We now have whipped enough air into it that this is going to help make everything softer. So this is where you want to stop with that. And here we have some photobombing. Is it called photobombing when it's a video? Maybe. I'm sure it's probably called photobombing. This is Baihu. She decided to be with us for a bit today. Alright, now, for our dry ingredients and the bananas, we'll start with the bananas. With the bananas, we're just going to mash them like you would potatoes, basically. You can also crush them up with your hands. You could use anything. I use this particular style, the wire-style potato masher, because I like for some of the pieces to be bigger, and it makes it a little more variety in the consistency. And I like that in my banana bread. I also like the bananas a little less overripe. Like, I don't let them get brown. I go a little before that because I really like the taste better when you have a full range of the banana flavors there. So we're just going to mash these up. And once we're done mashing these up, we're going to mix all of the dry ingredients in here. Again, the reason we do that is because once we've made sort of that dough, we can start working that dough into our sugar egg mixture, and we won't lose quite as many air bubbles or air pockets. So again, it'll be a lighter consistency. If you want an even lighter consistency than this, you actually mash the bananas to where there's no chunks, and the small sort of protein strands in the banana are going to solidify and add just a little bit more of a firmness to this. Okay, once we're happy with the consistency of our bananas, they're mashed to the spot we want, we can start putting our oil and our vanilla in, and I usually put those in first. And the reason I put those in first is it kind of helps everything blend in. None of these are really going to clump unless they were dropped right in the liquid, and they're not. And so you won't really see clumps here. So any ingredients in any order, just start with the 2 wet ones, and you can toss the rest of the stuff in as you're going. One of the reasons, again, that we do this is you can kind of look at it and go, okay, we have this much. It's going to be a really thick dough looking. It'll almost look like a regular bread dough, even though quick breads are usually very, very runny, almost to the level like pancakes or waffles. But in this case, it will be a sort of doughy, bread doughy look, and that's when you know it's all thoroughly mixed and you're ready to go and put the two together. This is a little different from the regular banana bread I make because of the oil in this situation, and that does make a difference in how firm or loose the dough is going to be. Because if you were to use butter like most of these recipes do, you would be creaming that along with the eggs and the sugar, so this would not really be as doughy if you were using the butter, because we didn't add any liquid here. And basically that would mean you're just mixing those dry ingredients and then doing the next step right there. So let's get to that part. Alright, now on to the mixing of the two together. Our semi-wet ingredients and our semi-dry ingredients. What we want to do is just basically get all of the stuff out of the bowl and into that bowl. And then we're going to start working our way from the outsides of the mass of dough. And it's going to get progressively thinner, but we're also going to want to be folding. So you're going to be taking everything, and as you can see here, the movement you're making is to keep mixing just a little bit in and just a little bit in and keep working it and working it. And it will go in to the state it's going to be in when we get into the loaf pan, which is a very liquidy form of bread. So once you take the couple seconds and you do this, you're going to need an extra minute because you want to keep folding it, and you see that every time you're folding it, you're getting more and more incorporated, but you're also not knocking out the air. And that's the most important thing about folding. You'll be doing it a lot if you make whipped cream, if you make, there's a lot of dishes that use this technique to keep things light and airy without making you work too hard. You just have to know where to put the work in. And in this case, it's right here. And the final stop for our banana bread before we put it in the oven, we're going to put it into our loaf pan, and you want to be a little bit slow on there, not super slow, just like you see here. I'm taking my time putting it in there, and the reason that I'm doing that is we whip that air into the mixture, and we also have baking soda in the mixture, and both of those are pretty much active at this point. The baking soda is not going to put much more bubbles in than it already has, so anything in the oven that happens is going to be almost all the result of the baking powder. So the reason this is important is because if we don't knock the air out, that's going to give us a nice lighter, more of a crumble, almost cake-like texture. And I prefer that on mine simply because, to me, it's a nicer texture. Now, unlike the spoon that I was using here, you should probably use a spatula. I could have gone quite a bit faster with the spatula and got the same done. So, hey, look, a spatula. Alright, once that's finished, you go into the oven, and if you want the top to be a little drier, a little more crusty, I would say a little more solid, you want to go 350 degrees for 1 hour. And then you'll test it with a toothpick, and if the toothpick comes out with no batter on it, you're ready. If you do want it to be a little less on the dry side on the very top, what you want to do is go for about 375 for 45 minutes. And then again, do the toothpick test and add time as necessary. And that will allow you to get pretty much the exact results you want. And with that, it's off to the oven for this loaf. And when your toothpick comes out clean, you're done. Now, you're going to want to cool this for a minimum of 15 minutes before you try and take it out of your loaf pan. If you are going to take it out of the loaf pan, I would wait at least that 15 minutes, if not just wait the whole 2 hours that I recommend you wait. Because even if you're not going to take it out, you kind of want to wait until 2 hours so all the moisture settles back in and it's not going to get dry once you cut into it. So with that, our banana bread is ready. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and if you learned something or enjoyed yourself, if you could like and subscribe, that would be a great help to me, and I will see you for the next one. Have a nice day and enjoy your meal.